Sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in the heart of a storm, when strangers become family and necessity becomes love on the endless Nebraska frontier. The Nebraska Territory sky turned black as coal, thunder rolling across the endless prairie like artillery fire. Ethan McBride pulled his worn leather hat down against the driving rain, his horse struggling through the mud-slicked trail toward White Pine. At 34, the solitary farmer had weathered countless storms, but this tempest felt different, angrier, more violent than any he'd known. Lightning split the darkness, illuminating the twisted wreckage of a stagecoach ahead. His heart hammered against his ribs as he spurred his mount forward, knowing that death often traveled these lonesome roads. Through the howling wind, Ethan heard a woman's weak cry for help. He dismounted and found her, a young lady in a torn blue traveling dress, unconscious and bleeding from a gash on her forehead. Her auburn hair was matted with rain and mud, but even in this wretched state, she possessed an undeniable grace. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he called above the storm. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing green eyes filled with pain and confusion. "Daniel," she whispered, They took everything." Ethan's jaw tightened. Bandits had struck again, leaving innocent folks to die in the wilderness. The woman tried to sit up, gasping as pain shot through her injured ribs. "My name is Sophia Montgomery," she managed. "I was traveling to marry Daniel Royce, but masked men attacked our coach. They shot Daniel and left me for dead." Ethan helped her to her feet, noting how she fought through the agony with remarkable determination. "We need to get you to safety, Miss Montgomery. These storms can kill as surely as any outlaw." He lifted her onto his horse, feeling her trembling against the cold rain. The nearest shelter was Father O'Connor's church in White Pine, but the journey would be treacherous through the flooding creek beds. At the small wooden church, Father O'Connor cleaned Sophia's wounds by candlelight while Ethan paced the narrow aisle. "She's lucky to be alive," the priest murmured, applying bandages to her injuries. "The nearest sheriff is 200 miles east, and those bandits could return at any time." Ethan studied Sophia's pale face, seeing strength beneath her fragile appearance. An idea formed in his mind. Desperate, perhaps, but necessary. "Miss Montgomery," he said quietly, "I know we're strangers, but you need legal protection to survive out here. Would you consider marriage, for safety's sake?" Sophia's eyes widened, but after a long moment she nodded. "Yes, Mr. McBride, I accept." Father O'Connor performed the hasty ceremony by flickering candlelight, his weathered Bible trembling in his hands as thunder shook the church walls. "Do you, Ethan McBride, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" The priest's voice barely carried over the storm's fury. Ethan looked into Sophia's eyes, seeing fear mixed with quiet determination. "I do," he said firmly. When Sophia spoke her vows, her voice was steady despite her injuries. "I do." The simple gold band Ethan placed on her finger had belonged to his mother, the only precious thing he owned. They were married now, bound by necessity and witnessed by God's thunder. Before the ceremony could properly conclude, the church door burst open. 3 men stumbled in, soaked to the bone. Old Joe, Tommy, and Red from Ethan's farm. "Boss, we got trouble," Old Joe panted, water dripping from his grizzled beard. 8 riders heading straight for the ranch through Pine Creek Valley. They're armed and moving with purpose. Ethan's blood ran cold. The bandits had tracked them. "How long do we have?" he asked, already reaching for his rifle. "Maybe 2 hours if this storm slows them down," Tommy replied, his young face pale with worry. Sophia struggled to her feet, still weak but resolute. "I won't be helpless again," she declared. While the men discussed defense strategies, Sophia examined Daniel's scattered belongings that Old Joe had recovered from the wreckage. Her educated fingers found something the others had missed: coded letters hidden in the lining of Daniel's satchel. Having attended Miss Pemberton's Academy for Young Ladies, she recognized the cipher patterns immediately. "These aren't random bandits," she announced, her voice cutting through their conversation. "Look at this." She showed them the decoded message revealing a systematic land-grabbing operation spanning multiple farms. The revelation struck them like lightning. They weren't facing mere thieves, but organized criminals connected to corrupt territorial officials. The group prepared to leave the church, but Sophia continued working on the coded documents by lamplight. There are more farms involved, she said, her fingers tracing the encrypted symbols. 5 other ranches have been attacked in sequence. This is part of something much larger. Her decoding revealed a coordinated conspiracy involving forged land deeds and systematic violence. Ethan watched her work with growing admiration. This woman possessed not only courage but intelligence that could save them all. We need to get to the ranch and prepare defenses, he said grimly. If they want my land, they'll have to fight for every acre. The storm raged on as they mounted their horses, united now in marriage and purpose. The group rode hard through the storm toward Ethan's ranch, mud flying from their horses' hooves as lightning illuminated the treacherous path. Sophia worked frantically on the coded documents, even while riding, her analytical mind piecing together the conspiracy's scope. It's worse than we thought, she called over the wind. They've systematically targeted large parcels of territory through forged land deeds and violence. Your farm is the 6th target in their operation. The revelation sent chills through the men. This wasn't random banditry. It was calculated theft on a massive scale, involving corruption that reached into the territorial government itself. At the ranch, they took shelter in Ethan's modest farmhouse while Sophia continued her decoding work by the fireplace. The documents revealed a systematic plan to control over 120,000 acres across 4 counties through intimidation and fraudulent paperwork. They're working with corrupt local officials, Sophia explained, showing them telegraph coordination schedules. The goal is to control enough land to influence Nebraska's statehood politics and railroad construction. Old Joe pulled out his handmade harmonica, its melancholy tune providing brief comfort against the storm's fury. The weight of their discovery settled heavily. They faced enemies with political connections and unlimited resources. The men began fortifying the ranch buildings while Sophia studied architectural drawings she'd found among Daniel's papers. These show defensive positions around similar farmsteads, she noted. Daniel wasn't just investigating, he was preparing for exactly this kind of attack. Ethan positioned Tommy in the barn loft with clear sightlines, while Red took cover behind the water trough. Old Joe climbed onto the bunkhouse roof, his harmonica and rifle equally ready for action. Sophia insisted on participating despite her injuries. I won't hide while brave men risk their lives for justice, she declared firmly. Her determination impressed them all. As dawn approached, Sophia made a startling discovery while examining Daniel's belongings more carefully. Hidden in his satchel's lining, she found a federal detective's badge and documents identifying him as Special Agent Daniel Royce, investigating the land fraud conspiracy. I was never meant to be a real mail-order bride, she realized aloud. I was cover for a federal investigation. The documents revealed Operation Clean Sweep, a 9-month federal investigation into the massive conspiracy. Federal agents were scheduled to arrive in White Pine the next morning, but the gang planned to ambush them. The stakes had just become life or death for more than just their small group. Dawn broke gray and ominous as 8 riders emerged from the morning mist, surrounding the ranch with military precision. The gang leader, a scarred man in a black duster, called out from his position near the main gate. "McBride, we know you're in there. Come out peaceful-like and nobody gets hurt." Ethan checked his rifle from behind the kitchen window, his jaw set with grim determination. "Tommy, you see them?" he called to the barn loft. 8 riders, boss. They're spreading out to cover all exits, came the reply. The siege had begun. Sophia crouched in the kitchen, still working on the coded documents while coordinating communication between the defensive positions. Her mirror caught sunlight, flashing signals to the men positioned around the farm. "They need us alive long enough to sign property transfer documents," she called to Ethan. "That gives us an advantage." The gang leader shouted again. "We're offering you a chance to walk away, McBride. Don't be a fool." Ethan's response was firm. "This is my land. I'm not going anywhere." The tension escalated as both sides prepared for inevitable conflict. Old Joe positioned himself on the bunkhouse roof, his harmonica silent but his rifle ready. Red crouched behind the water trough, watching the south approach where 2 riders had stationed themselves. From the barn loft, Tommy had the best view of the gang's movements. "They're trying to get us to make the first move," Ethan observed, studying the bandits' tactical positions. The gang leader raised his voice. "Last chance, farmer. Sign over your deed and ride out, or we'll take it by force." Sophia appeared at Ethan's side, her green eyes blazing with defiance. "We know about the federal investigation," she shouted back. The gang leader's confident expression faltered at Sophia's revelation. "You don't know what you're dealing with, lady," he snarled, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Sophia continued boldly. "Agent Daniel Royce gathered evidence of your entire operation. Federal marshals are already on their way." The lie was convincing enough to make several bandits exchange nervous glances. Ethan admired his new wife's quick thinking. She was buying them precious time. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the ranch yard where two opposing forces faced each other, neither willing to back down from the confrontation that would determine the fate of the McBride Ranch. As darkness fell, the bandits maintained their positions around the ranch, creating a tense standoff. Sophia worked by candlelight, examining Daniel's belongings more thoroughly. Hidden deep in his satchel's secret compartment, she discovered a federal detective's badge and official documents. Her hands trembled as she read, "Special Agent Daniel Royce, Federal Investigation Bureau." The truth hit her like a physical blow. She had never been intended as a real mail-order bride, but as cover for Daniel's dangerous undercover work investigating the territorial land fraud conspiracy. The federal documents revealed Operation Clean Sweep, a comprehensive 9-month investigation into systematic land theft across Nebraska territory. Daniel had been tracking a criminal organization that had stolen over 120,000 acres through forged deeds, violence, and corruption involving territorial officials. Sophia realized the conspiracy's ultimate goal, controlling enough land to influence Nebraska's statehood politics and railroad development. She shared this devastating revelation with Ethan, who listened grimly. "No wonder they're so determined," he muttered. "This is bigger than any of us imagined." Further documents revealed that federal agents Captain Samuel Billings and his deputies were scheduled to arrive in White Pine the following morning to arrest the corrupt officials and dismantle the criminal operation. However, the gang had intercepted telegraph communications and planned to ambush the federal officers before they could act. "We have to warn them," Sophia declared urgently. "If Captain Billings walks into their trap, the entire investigation dies with him." Ethan studied the dangerous terrain between their ranch and White Pine. "It's a 20-mile ride through hostile territory," he said grimly. "Old Joe volunteered for the perilous mission to White Pine." "I know every mountain trail and forest path," the grizzled farmhand said confidently. "Those bandits won't expect an old-timer like me to slip past their patrols." Sophia insisted on accompanying him, despite her injuries. "I have Daniel's federal credentials and evidence," she argued. "Captain Billings needs to see these documents to understand the conspiracy's full scope." Ethan reluctantly agreed, knowing their success could save not only their ranch, but the entire federal investigation. As midnight approached, Sophia and Old Joe prepared for their desperate ride through enemy territory. Under cover of darkness, Sophia and Old Joe slipped away from the ranch through a hidden gulch that led to the mountain trails. Old Joe's intimate knowledge of the terrain proved invaluable as they navigated treacherous paths by moonlight, avoiding the bandits' patrol routes. Sophia clutched Daniel's federal documents against her chest, knowing these papers represented the only hope for justice. "Stay close and follow my lead," Old Joe whispered as they approached a dangerous creek, crossing where bandits might be watching. The old farmhand's weathered face showed grim determination despite the overwhelming odds against their mission's success. They reached White Pine just before dawn, their horses exhausted from the grueling mountain journey. Captain Samuel Billings was preparing to ride out with his deputies when Sophia burst into his office, still wearing her torn traveling dress and clutching the federal evidence. "Captain, you're walking into a trap," she gasped. Billings, a stern man with graying temples, initially showed skepticism. "Ma'am, I don't know who you are, but—" Sophia thrust Daniel's badge and documents toward him. Special Agent Daniel Royce was investigating territorial corruption. These documents prove everything. The captain's expression changed as he examined the official papers. Sophia spread the decoded documents across Billings' desk, explaining the conspiracy's scope with passionate urgency. "They've stolen over 120,000 acres through forged deeds and violence. Corrupt territorial officials are coordinating with the gang through telegraph communications." Captain Billings studied the evidence, his face darkening with each revelation. "The political implications are staggering," he muttered. If this corruption reaches into the territorial government, Sophia nodded grimly. They plan to control Nebraska's statehood process and railroad development. Agent Royce nearly died gathering this evidence. Billings finally understood the investigation's true magnitude and agreed to coordinate a counterattack. Using her small mirror as a signaling device, Sophia flashed coded messages toward the distant ranch, communicating with Ethan about the coordinated plan developing in White Pine. Captain Billings quickly organized local volunteers to support the federal operation, while Sophia continued decoding the gang's communication schedules. They expect to eliminate the federal threat this morning, she warned, but now we can turn their own trap against them. Old Joe grinned, pulling out his harmonica. This old tune's about to become their funeral march, he said with satisfaction. The stage was set for a decisive confrontation that would determine the fate of justice in Nebraska territory. Dawn's first light brought Old Joe's harmonica melody echoing across the valley, the prearranged signal for the coordinated three-pronged attack. Captain Billings and his federal agents approached from the east, while White Pine townspeople advanced from the south. Ethan's men emerged from their defensive positions, catching the bandits completely off guard. Sophia positioned herself on a hill overlooking the ranch, using her mirror to coordinate the different groups' movements with flashing signals. The gang, despite their preparation, found themselves surrounded and outmaneuvered by the coordinated nature of the assault they hadn't anticipated. The bandits began retreating toward predetermined rally points, but the coordinated attack disrupted their escape routes. Tommy's shotgun created tactical advantages from the barn loft, while Old Joe's precise shooting from the bunkhouse roof proved devastatingly effective. Red emerged from behind the water trough, flanking two bandits who had thought themselves safe. Captain Billings' federal agents pressed their advantage from the eastern approach, while the townspeople closed off southern escape routes. The battle's intensity grew as the criminals realized their carefully planned operation was crumbling under the coordinated counterattack. Ethan left his protected position to engage the gang leader in direct combat, abandoning his rifle for a sturdy oak club when his ammunition ran low. The bandit leader drew his revolver, confidence returning as he faced what appeared to be an unarmed farmer. "Should have taken my generous offer, McBride," he snarled, raising his weapon. But Ethan's years of hard farm labor had given him strength and determination that the criminal hadn't anticipated. The club whistled through the air as Ethan closed the distance, his movements calculated and precise despite the revolver's threat. The gang leader, realizing his operation was completely compromised, made a desperate final attempt to salvage something from the disaster. Grabbing a torch from a fallen lantern, he threatened to burn down the farmhouse while shouting about the legitimacy of his forged territorial documents. "This land is legally ours according to territorial law," he declared wildly. Sophia arrived just in time, using her education and eloquence to distract the desperate criminal while Ethan maneuvered for a decisive strike. "Your forged documents are worthless," she declared boldly. "The federal case is already built, and your conspiracy is completely exposed to territorial authorities." The gang leader waved his torch menacingly near the farmhouse's wooden walls, his eyes wild with desperation. "I'll burn this whole place down before I let you win," he snarled. Sophia stepped forward fearlessly, her voice calm but commanding. "You've already lost. The federal investigation has documented everything. Your forged deeds, corrupt officials, telegraph communications. Destroying this farm won't save your conspiracy." Her educated speech and unwavering confidence began to shake the criminal's resolve. Meanwhile, Ethan circled carefully, his oak club ready, waiting for the perfect moment to strike without endangering his brave wife. "Your threats are meaningless," Sophia continued, her green eyes blazing with righteous anger. Special Agent Daniel Royce gathered evidence spanning 9 months of investigation. 15 territorial officials are already under federal surveillance. The gang leader's hand trembled as he held the torch, uncertainty replacing his earlier bravado. "You're lying," he accused, but his voice lacked conviction. Sophia pulled out the federal documents, holding them high. "Operation Clean Sweep has documented your entire criminal network. Captain Billings has warrants for everyone involved in this conspiracy." Her words struck like hammer blows against his crumbling confidence. While Sophia held the gang leader's attention with her verbal assault, Ethan moved into position behind him. The criminal was so focused on Sophia's accusations that he failed to notice the farmer's approach. Even if you escape today, Sophia declared boldly, federal justice will find you. Your corruption ends here in Nebraska territory. The gang leader raised his torch higher in frustration and rage. Shut your mouth, woman, he shouted. At that moment, Ethan struck with his oak club, the solid wood connecting with the criminal's wrist and sending the torch flying harmlessly into the mud, extinguishing it with a satisfying hiss. Captain Billings arrived with his deputies as Ethan subdued the gang leader, announcing the successful capture of all remaining bandits. The territorial land fraud conspiracy is officially dismantled, he declared with satisfaction. The gang leader glared up from the mud, his dreams of illegal wealth and political influence shattered completely. You haven't stopped anything, he spat bitterly. There are others. Sophia knelt beside him, her voice gentle but firm. Then federal justice will find them too. This territory will be built on honest work and legitimate law, not on theft and corruption. Justice had finally triumphed through the combined efforts of federal authority and frontier determination. With the immediate danger past, Ethan and Sophia began exploring their relationship beyond the desperate circumstances that had brought them together. They spent quiet evenings by the fireplace, sharing tea and conversation while the Nebraska wind whispered through the prairie grass outside their windows. Sophia discovered pressed wildflowers in Ethan's poetry book, revealing a tender soul beneath his rugged exterior. I picked these last spring, he admitted shyly. They reminded me that beautiful things can survive in harsh places. Sophia smiled, understanding that he was speaking about more than just flowers. Ethan offered Sophia her freedom now that the danger had passed, but she surprised him with her decision. I finally found a place where I belong, she said, her hand touching his weathered cheek gently. This marriage began from necessity, but it's become something real and precious. Her words filled Ethan's heart with unexpected joy. He had prepared himself for her departure, but now discovered the depth of his own feelings. I never dared hope you might choose to stay, he confessed. You've brought light to this lonely ranch and purpose to my solitary life. Sophia revealed her natural abilities in household management and animal care, while Ethan learned to appreciate having a true life partner who shared both labor and dreams. Together they planned improvements to the ranch, discussing expansion of crop cultivation and livestock breeding. We could develop a sheep breeding program, Sophia suggested enthusiastically. My education included agricultural studies that could prove valuable here. Ethan marveled at her practical intelligence. Their evenings were filled with shared books, quiet conversations, and the growing realization that their forced union was blossoming into genuine love and mutual respect. A letter arrived from the territorial doctor in Pine Ridge, bringing news that lifted a weight from Sophia's heart. Daniel Royce survived his wounds, she read aloud to Ethan with tears of relief. He's recovering in the territorial hospital and sends his gratitude for your courage in completing his mission. The doctor reported that Daniel had been found unconscious but alive by a passing freight wagon hours after the attack. He wants you to know the federal investigation succeeded because of your bravery, Sophia continued. Knowing Daniel lived allowed her to fully embrace her new life without the shadow of guilt over his sacrifice. 4 months after the conspiracy's defeat, Ethan and Sophia had transformed both their ranch and their relationship into something strong and beautiful. Sophia's testimony helped convict 15 territorial officials, recover 95,000 acres of illegally seized land, and secure a substantial federal reward that ensured their financial future. The ranch flourished under their joint leadership, with Sophia developing innovative sheep breeding programs while Ethan expanded grain cultivation. Their love had grown deeper with each passing day, built on the solid foundation of shared trials and mutual respect that had forged their unlikely partnership. Old Joe received a letter from his son in Missouri, who had decided to travel west and join their thriving operation. Family's what makes a place worth fighting for, the grizzled farmhand said with tears in his eyes. Tommy and Red had also chosen to stay permanently, turning the McBride Ranch into a true community of loyal friends. Sophia's education proved invaluable in managing the ranch's expanding business operations, while Ethan's steady leadership provided the backbone for their growing success. Their partnership had become the talk of White Pine, inspiring other couples with their devotion. As they prepared to install a new ranch sign bearing both their names, Ethan and Sophia reflected on their remarkable journey from strangers united by necessity to partners bound by love. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if that storm hadn't brought us together, Sophia mused, watching the sunset paint the Nebraska sky in brilliant colors. Ethan took her hand gently. I believe fate has its own wisdom, he replied. The best things in life often come when we least expect them. Their story had become a testament to hope and perseverance on the American frontier. Standing together before their newly completed ranch sign reading McBride and Montgomery Ranch, Esther 1880, Ethan and Sophia looked toward the horizon with confidence and joy. Their marriage, born from a desperate storm, had become the foundation for a love story that embodied the hope and determination of the American frontier spirit. We've built something lasting here, Sophia said, her voice filled with pride. Not just a ranch, but a real home and family. Ethan smiled, pulling her close as the prairie wind carried the promise of endless possibilities across their fertile land.